Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are all doing great today. It is very warm for November here. It's like 70 degrees or so here. It's very nice. But I am inside today because that's what the topic today is focusing on, and that is how to keep your houseplants happy in the winter. So even though it's warm today, it is going to get cold here at some point. It always comes. So I do want to go over some tips on how you guys can keep your plants happy and healthy over winter. So first and foremost, the first thing to do, if you have not done it already, is to get your houseplants inside if they have been outside over the summer. So I've had some of these, like this plant for instance. This one was outside over the summer. So I brought it inside probably about a month ago. So it's actually been inside for a little while. But you want to make sure that they are inside ideally before it's below like 40 or 45 degrees. And definitely before it gets below freezing. Because a lot of these plants are tender plants. They come from tropical areas. So it is very important to get them in before it gets any kind of freezing temperatures come. So make sure that you debug them, make sure you spray them for insects, that you check them over really well, and yeah, just get them in. And yeah, so get them inside before it gets too cold is really the long and short of it. Now after you have done that, you do want to find a suitable place in your house for your plants. So a lot of houseplants, generally speaking, seem to prefer bright, indirect lighting. So, however, in the wintertime, depending on where you live, if you have a little bit weaker sun, like if you live in a temperate climate over the winter, then you can actually get away, at least in my experience, with some direct sun. So these are not in the window, obviously. These are actually under a grow light, which I will talk about in a minute. So you do want to find definitely at least, I would try finding like eastern, western, or southern windows in the winter, preferably. If you don't have that, they will probably still be fine, but they probably won't do as well. So it is a good idea to get them in a fairly bright window and fairly bright area of the house. The other option is to use grow lights. So I have this grow light over this big New Guinea impatient. I think they're actually multiple New Guinea impatiens. Oh, the leaf fell off. So grow lights can be super helpful this time of year. So if you cannot find a bright window, if you are willing to spend a little bit of money and get a grow light, you will be very happy with them. I love grow lights. They're seriously my lifesaver in winter. So that is an option if you have the money to do so. But again, if the lighting is not quite ideal, it probably won't kill them. But yeah, try and get them in a window as bright as possible. Now, as for watering your houseplants, this is something in winter. This is something that is very important to get right. Because in wintertime, generally speaking, houseplants do not require as much water in the winter. Now, this is especially true if you don't have them under grow lights. So if you have them under grow lights, they might need watered more often, but generally speaking, they don't need as much water in the winter because they're not growing as quickly in the winter. Now, again, that might change if you have a grow light, but it is still important, though, to keep the soil moist. So this was just watered fairly recently. So this is good for a little while. And I can actually go several weeks with some of my plants between waterings, especially in winter, and they do just fine. You definitely don't want to let them get too dry, but certainly not too wet, or you might deal with fungus gnats, which is not great, and obviously it can rot and kill your plant. So keep watering modest, I would say. Not too much, but not too little. Now, as for feeding your houseplants, I personally, over winter time, I don't feed my houseplants at all, regardless of whether or not they're under grow lights or not. I have heard some people say that you should probably still feed them if they're under grow lights, because again, they will probably grow more if they're under grow lights. But I really haven't found, I really don't do it, and I have found no, what is the word? Like no negative effects, sorry. But if you want to, if they're under grow lights and they're still growing really well, you can probably feed them, but I would definitely feed them lightly. But generally speaking, I don't worry about feeding my plants in winter, and they do just fine. Now, as for pruning and other maintenance, so this one is really subjected to the kinds of plants you're growing. So, for instance, this is a pothos I have, and you can see this really long, leggy stem. I could probably snip that off. You do want to make sure you remove any leggy limbs, because that is not good for your plant, and definitely get any yellow leaves, and make sure that your soil is clean. Do not leave dead debris or anything on the soil, otherwise that can attract insects. So if there's any leggy growth, you can trim that off, but ideally, unless they're growing really well, ideally I would probably avoid doing any really hard pruning. Like if you wanted to prune this like really hard, would probably wait to do that till spring, unless they're growing really vigorously. So yeah, and that's pruning. And another thing you should probably think about doing with your houseplants in winter is keeping their foliage clean. So in the winter, when our days are short and they're already having a harder time getting light, especially at least if they don't have enough light. But one way you can do that to help them is to clean your leaves with just a damp cloth. So now, obviously, this would probably take a while, depending on what plant. This one has kind of a lot of leaves. Another thing you can do, and something I've been doing with a lot of my plants, is just putting them in the shower every so often and rinsing them off. I have found that to personally be the best and fastest option. But it is important to especially to maximize the amount of light they get and to minimize pests. Keeping your plants clean is probably one of the best ways you can avoid pests. Now, speaking of pests, that is something to watch, especially in winter. I fortunately don't seem to deal with pests too often, but they can happen, and it is important to deal with them as soon as possible. In fact, this plant actually is dealing with a fungus gnat problem. I really personally haven't done anything because it doesn't seem to be too bad, and the soil looks like it's starting to dry. So, and that is a big reason why you shouldn't overwater your plants, like I was mentioning earlier, because you get fungus gnats, and they're these little black flies. You can't really see them, but they don't seem to be quite as bad. I think I did actually spray the soil with an insecticide, so I'm hoping that helped. I might spray it again. But it is important to take care of insect problems as soon as possible, because in the winter time, they multiply quicker because there's no predators or anything like that inside. So it is very important to take care of them and get rid of them as soon as possible. Otherwise, it's going to be a huge problem, and that's not going to be fun for you or for anyone else you're living with to deal with. So that is very important. I think that's about it, what I wanted to talk to you guys about, how to keep your houseplants happy and healthy over the winter. And let me know if I left anything out. I tried to cover as much as I could, but I might have left something else out. So if you need more information, just let me know. And if you guys enjoyed this video, if you guys could please give me a like, comment, and subscribe. I would really much appreciate it. And I will see you guys in another video very soon. Thanks for watching.